2 years ago an enrollment report, and upon request from the board, put together an enrollment report for this year as well. There are 3, 4, 5 main sources of information for this. One, I got a enrollments report from Skyward that ran from third Friday count last year to third Friday count this year. So it's all enrollments, and then I also got a withdrawal report for the same period of time. So all the enrollments and all the withdrawals. In addition, we have open enrollment portal, and we grabbed a series of reports from there. And once again, looking at that same time frame, third Friday count to third Friday count, looking at all open enrollments in and all open enrollments out. And then there's a couple specialty reports that I'll talk about in a bit too. And then there is a what's it called, Homer, the homeschooled portal, and so we can track registered homeschool students in there. And then the last source of information is the Wisconsin Public Choice, the voucher system reports for private schools that we were able to access as well. And with that, I'll dive. Oh, go ahead.
First day graduated 321 4. So in other words, during that number manipulation there's 121 students less.
Exactly. So here on that second page are 2025 enrollment changes. Last year we had 5,711 students enrolled on the third Friday count. This year we have 5,564. And from that enrollment and withdrawal report, third Friday to third Friday count, we had 321 students who had their first day of school in there. And most of those are over the summer. They're registering for the first time as 4K students or kindergartners, depending on when they come in. Some first graders too. And 442 graduates, a variety of things, traditional graduation, GEDs through the tech school, a variety of different ways. We had 109 new open enrollments in and 89 withdrawals. So those were kind of traditional open enrollments. We had 33 enroll in the school district from private school and 12 withdraw from private school. And then we had 20 that came to us from homeschool and 24 that left to go to homeschool. And then we had 181 students who moved into the school district and 270 who moved out. And most of those happened over the summer. Just from the third Friday count, we had a net minus 147 students. And if you add up these enrollments and withdrawals and subtract them, it will not be 147. And it's partly because we will have open enrollment students who move into the school district and convert their enrollment in that period of time. Or we have students that move in and then move out, so they get counted double. It is too much work for the purposes of this report to dive into all those minutiae and details, but this gives broad sketches about what's going on in the school district. Given that about 80% of our change here could be was from kind of first day to graduates, about 80% of our enrollment change could be attributed to birth rate, fewer kids being born in the school district, entering schools. And then about 20% can be attributed to net migration out. We have more kids leave our school district than move in, and they're moving all over the place, but about 33% of them are moving to Holman and Onalaska, and about 67% are moving everywhere else, all across the state and even across the nation. Any questions there?
And you'd assume that, for instance, the parents maybe bought a house there, and that's the reason for the move, or if for some reason they in-district or out-of-district transfer, or whatever X reason.
Absolutely, yep. If it's a move out, it means they physically moved and they were enrolling in their home school district there, which is a reasonable choice for some people. We always hope they stay with us, but that's not always the case. Took a little bit deeper dive into open enrollment, and this is specifically the new open enrollments, of which we had 109 in and 89 out. 60% of new open enrollments out went to Onalaska, and you can see from that graph that we have a net loss compared to Onalaska. More students are leaving for Onalaska than coming to us. When you look at the data in and out, about 40 to 50% of new open enrollments are kindergarten or 4K, and it's usually their first experience with school. So they're coming to our school district or to Onalaska or another school district for the first time in kindergarten or 4K. And so if they're open enrolling out, they've often never experienced the Crosse. They made a choice to go there for some reason. And this is where things start to get complicated and why our net open enrollment out keeps climbing. Of our open enrollments in this last year, of which we had 300 some, 79 did not return. So they were in our school district and they did not return to our school district from open enrollment. 11 moved to the school district of La Crosse, so that's a good thing. They converted their open enrollment to residential enrollment, and 33 were in kindergarten. So, so they were here for 4K and then left to go back to their home district. And we often see that with our community childcare centers, whether it's Quick Trip for Kids or Cooley Child Care or Gunderson or YWCA. They start with us there. It's convenient in terms of their employment, their parents' employment, and then they go back to their home district for kindergarten. That's a pretty common thing. And so we're a net positive on like an annual basis, but we're not retaining open enrollments long term. And so that's where we keep seeing this gap show up between our ins and our outs.
Just trying to understand the 79 open enrollment return. So they open enrolled in last year.
Correct.
And
Or
then
prior years.
okay. But this was new open enrollment, so but that's a different.
Different metric, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's
trying
just generally they were with us and then they chose to leave
Okay.
for some reason.
Right.
And that one I don't have. It would take a lot of work to like drill down to
Mhm.
specifics, which could be beneficial.
But
Some of them
33 of
may.
those were kindergarten kids.
The only place we're given Y is on alternative open enrollments in. That's the one place where they're required to put in a reason.
Okay.
And
Is that like people wanting to do CRVA?
It could be that. It's usually a little bit more generic. So for alternate open enrollment out, where they provide an explanation, we had 40 of those this last year. 21 said they wanted to remain in their current school. And so what that means is they were in West Salem as a resident school, just as a resident student. They moved to La Crosse, but they wanted their children to stay in West Salem. So they weren't in our school district, and they wanted to stay with their friends or teachers, whatever it might be. Not unreasonable request. So that's about 53%. 10% were for family situations, so oftentimes divorce or an aunt where they're living with, and so they're trying to maintain enrollment in their original school. And then another 8% were siblings. So their siblings already attended there for some reason, often because of the remain in school district, and then they want their siblings to go with them to that same school. Often, not an unreasonable request. So that's 71% of the open enrollment out during the school year. And those, for all of our open enrollments, add up to about 40% of open enrollments. And so you can use that to kind of like cast a broader understanding of what's going on with open enrollment. The remaining 20, 30%, they had concerns that we hope we would be able to address. But for whatever reason, we're not. And so they chose to go elsewhere. Something I had reported a couple years ago and tried to update again here with a little bit more understanding of some of these things was, what are the enrollments within our control? Where did they maybe experience us, or they were making a more specific choice about the school district? One of those is non-4K and kindergarten open enrollment. They've experienced a school district, ours or someone else's, and they're making a choice about coming to their next school district. And so I think those are more within our control than other types of open enrollments where there's kind of no experience. We had 67 that I think that's flipped. It should be in. So the blue column should be in.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
It's like,
that's,
how are we
that's
netting
in-
31?
Yeah, that's an error. The blue should be in, the red should be out. Apologize for that. So 67 were open enrolled in, and 53 open enrolled out. We had 33 private school students come from private school to public school, and 12 left for public school. There were 20 homeschool students that came into the school district, blue is in, and 24 left. Just on those three metrics, it's about a net plus 31. But when you go back out to that open enrollment in that aren't returning, there were 29 in there that were reasonably within our control that would fall into some of these categories. And so that gets it a little bit more to neutral. But then there's also some open enrollment out not returning. So they went to Holman and then they came back to us. We can't track those numbers because of the way the reporting works. But there are some of those, most likely. And then there's some other factors that we'll look into. Homeschool never enrolled, but stayed away, or private school, they just went straight to private school and we didn't know them. My assessment is probably net neutral-ish, but maybe gaining a little bit, so that's just ballpark based on the limited information we have.
So when you say in our control, you mean they are in our area, in our district otherwise physically.
Yep.
And if for some offering we could have, maybe we could attract them.
Yes, if we provided the right perception of our school district, set of opportunities, the right communication, the right experience, they might have chosen us, but for something that happened. What this slide does is reassure me that, we're losing as many as we're gaining, maybe, most likely, and that our value proposition is similar to others. We would like it to be better, but it's similar. Some other enrollment factors. One is our open enrollment history. It was implemented in 1998. We ran a net positive for many years, but since 2018, we've started to see a net loss of about a minus 104 today. And that trend has been pretty consistent up on the outs, and it has tapered off on the ins. If you look at all of our open enrollments, we have 315 that come in and 419 that go out. I did get the columns right on this one. And you can see the 5 districts where we see the most open enrollment out and in. 213 go to Onalaska, 75 come back, 97 go to West Salem, 66 come back, and we're above water with Holman, Westby, and DeSoto. 51% of our open enrollments go to Onalaska. That's our primary competitor for students that are choosing to open enroll. That is true. There you go.
But wait a minute, the 65% always attending, so that of the 419, well over half may live in La Crosse but have always attended.
Yes.
So, okay, that's a different kind of story too.
Yeah, it adds some nuance to it, but I think Mr. Neumeister's point is correct.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't attract them at the outset.
Right.
We had a chance in 4K in kindergarten, and they didn't choose us. But yeah, about 2/3 always attended the district that they're currently in. So that's good information to have. Both attended ours or Onalaska or Holman, whatever it might be. About 40% of open enrollments occurred at kindergarten or 4K, so they started somewhere else and continued on. And then 25% of open enrolled stay in the district they move out of. So if you live in West Salem and you move to La Crosse, they go back to West Salem about 25% of the time. That's what the data here says. And then what I noticed as I was looking at a variety of different ways to cut the data, there's a lot of transients back and forth between Onalaska and La Crosse. People view this as like a pool of apartments and houses that, the highway might be there physically, but the access to affordable rents or the next house, the next place to live is right there. And so whether you live, in the Huber Hinchin neighborhood or on the north side of the Lower Depot or up in Onalaska, it's all the same housing market, from a family's perspective. And so we see a fair amount of open enrollment in and out from even sometimes the same students as they're trying to stay in their home district while transferring back and forth between a more affordable rent situation somewhere else.
I think a hostile takeover is what we need to start planning for. Just annex the entirety of it.
2 high schools is nice. I don't know about 3.
Boy, news media, did you catch that?
Homeschool enrollment. We have seen pretty level homeschool enrollment over the years. It was a little less before the pandemic. It certainly spiked during the pandemic as people made a variety of choices, and it's come back down since. And this year it's at its lowest it's been in 6 years, at 147. 43 of those were new homeschool enrollments for this year, which is interesting. We were able to find that data.
And they were all, what grade? I mean, is it?
We don't have access to grade. All we have is the parent's name and the number of kids. There's very little data associated with it. And I can compare last year's list to this year's list to see who was a new one. That's about it. Private school enrollment. We have 258 FTE in private school vouchers for 25-26. So we get a report every year that tells us the number of kids that are going out. We don't know where. We don't know what schools. We can make pretty good guesses. We suspect they're the ones that are locally, can't travel too far. And we have a fair number of options around us. So the Lutheran schools in Luther, Aquinas school system, Providence Academy, and Cooley Christian are the primary places that. I would include virtual schools as well, in some cases. Some of the privates do offer virtual schools, and those are actually popping up more and more frequently, especially in the Milwaukee area. They can take advantage of our rules to draw funds that way. I think I've seen 1 or 2 that might qualify for that, but it's hard for us to know because we don't know where our kids go. In trying to quantify, what some of this means because we don't have great data around it, I looked at all the school districts in La Crosse County, so the ones that would be closest to these private schools. And 43% of La Crosse County resident vouchers come from the school district of La Crosse. So if you look at all the vouchers in the county, 43% come from La Crosse.
It's next door.
Absolutely. And that's about our percentage of the public school enrollment in La Crosse County. Holman and Onalaska are about half our size. West Salem's a 5th to a 6th of our size. So that's ballpark where it would make sense for us to be if we had proportional enrollment to private schools on the voucher side. It's easier because we have a longer history to see some things at Aquinas. And so, there's also Luther and Cooley Christian and Providence. But if we look at Aquinas, we can get some kind of history there. Enrollment at Aquinas fell by 36% from 1994 to 2012.
Is this just the high school, or is this
The whole system.
the whole system?
Yep.
Elementary.
Yep. So there was a steady decline there. In fact, it was greater decline than at the public schools through that period of time. And then in 2013, vouchers stabilized enrollment right around that 1,000 student mark. And that's about their physical capacity when you look at the middle and high schools. And so they've been careful to stay in that ballpark so that they can accommodate the kids that they can educate. And vouchers have increased over time, but have really stabilized since 2018 at Aquinas at about 19%. It's fluctuated between 18 and 19% since then in terms of vouchers. Other schools have seen greater increases, but at Aquinas it stayed pretty steady. Long-term enrollment trends. We've had declining enrollment for 30 years. In 1995, our enrollment was 8,152. Today, it's 5,564 students, a 32% reduction. For a while, it was stable at the high school, and then it was stable at the elementary school, but all three levels have been declining now in recent years. Primary cause of declining enrollment is birth rates. They've been declining locally, statewide, and nationally. And the birth rate in La Crosse County has dropped 30% since 1990. So lines up pretty well with the decline in the number of students in our schools as well. Population changes locally. The city of La Crosse and the surrounding townships have grown 1.8% in 35 years. So we were at 51,544 in the city of La Crosse in 1990, and we're at 52,542, 998 new residents in the city of La Crosse 35 years later. And so if there's fewer kids being born in the same population of residents, you're just going to have fewer kids in your schools. And Holman and Onalaska, despite their incredible growth over that period of time, they have also been experiencing declining enrollment over the last 5 years. And Onalaska is really now in our situation. They're landlocked as well. Their buildable land is almost built out. And so they're in a very similar situation that we are. And they've been steadying their enrollment through open enrollment, and equally Holman and La Crosse students. We've got two different projections for enrollment. One that we use is the UW Applied Population Lab. Their most optimistic projection is a minus 386 students in 5 years. That was from last year. The median outcome would result in minus 746 students in 5 years, assuming stable 4K and kindergarten enrollments, and we know that that's not happening. Those have always felt a little on the dire side, given our experiences. We usually come in a little less significant than those. And that's why the MD Roffers enrollment projections have been nice. It's a more detailed and nuanced projection, and we're thankful to have this around. Our 2025 prediction was that we would have 5,545 students, and the actual was about 20 students more. So they were within 0.3% in year one, which is a good sign for the future. And they estimate minus 315 students in 5 years. And we're hopeful that's the trend as opposed to the UW Applied Population Lab. Next steps. If you get students in your school district, they stick around. And so I think that highlights the need to focus on 4K and kindergarten enrollments and to promote the great programs that we have at that level, and to see how our all-day 4K programming works. And then shifting the public perception of the school district to promote enrollment. We have amazing opportunities in our school district. We have amazing teachers, and as we improve our facilities, that will make a difference as well. And lastly, we need to continue to adapt to declining enrollment. Our projections indicate it will continue. We're in a really good place right now. We've made some really important decisions that will stabilize things for a number of years. We'll just have to keep our eye on that trend and make sure that we don't fall behind the power curve on budgets and staffing and all those other things. And that's all I have. Happy to take any questions and entertain any conversation.
So, this declining enrollment, it's not realistic it's gonna go to zero, but that seems like that's the direction, is there some point it's gonna level off, or I would think this would be still a district where people are gonna want their kids to go. Is there any projections on that or any information on
When I look at the MD Roffers enrollment projections, it shows kind of more significant declines in the first 5 years, and then as we get out to 35 and 40, we're only losing about 100 kids a year after that. And so I would anticipate
Molly's face said what my brain was thinking.
it's 100 over 5-year periods, so it's 20 a year. It's
Oh.
pretty small for a school district our size, so that's unfortunate declines, but pretty stable, so I think once, it looks to me that once we hit 2030, even 2027, it's going to be fewer and fewer after that. It'll stabilize and we'll hit, some level of new normal for birth rates that will kind of lock in for a period of time. People are still going to have kids. It's just a matter of how many. And, my philosophy has slowly become our job is to educate the kids we have, not the ones we want. And for those that are here, we provide the best darn education we possibly can. And we make ourselves as competitive as possible so that you want to come live here in La Crosse and attend our schools.
Questions? Jim's formulating some. I can see
When
that.
I think of Polytech school and the excitement that those kids show when they're there and the teachers that are there. You don't always see that in schools. So I don't know if there's something that could be expanded upon with that particular product. Why do kids seem to gravitate, and once they get there, they really seem to enjoy it? That's just a general observation, but if we could play on that particular sound, and maybe we are doing it through the trades that we're offering at Logan and Central. Are there introductory trades at the middle school? I know we heard something about the FFA, but I don't know other than that. Are they getting interested in 8th grade in terms of a construction trade? I mean, I think the earlier you expose kids to those type things, maybe they show more of an interest. So I don't know if there's introductory construction, introductory robotics, whatever.
Yeah, we are fortunate to have career and tech ed classes at the middle school level, and all students get access to all of those. They get a chance to kind of survey what they like so that they get excited about careers and what might come in high school. I think your point about Polytechnics is a good one. That school uses project-based learning, very hands-on, very engaging, and they have a very intense focus on that at Polytechnic, but that doesn't mean we can't create engaging education across our school district. And at the high school level, you probably experienced yourself a teacher that lectured all day, and then you got to do some work at the very end of the class, and then you were off on your way. It was maybe informative, maybe not, but it might not have been engaging. And so I think as we think about students today, think about the best teaching that we can provide, what does that engaging, hands-on instruction look like? When I think about every time I'm in a class in an elementary building and I go to lunch and I sit down with the kids, I always ask them, what's your favorite class? Inevitably, it's art, music, or FIA. Right? Those are the most engaging, hands-on classes. They're also novel. They don't have to put up with their teacher all day in those classes, right? But those are the places where they're most excited because of the type of instruction that naturally goes on, that the subject matter just makes alive. And so how can we do that in a 11th grade English class? How can we do that in a algebra class? How do we create engaging, exciting instruction that kids really enjoy? Now, you have to somehow translate that experience to parents making decisions in 4K, and that's harder to do. But I think that's how we would create, vibrant high schools that are super attractive. And I think we have great things already. You can't beat the opportunities in our school district for AP classes, dual credit, academies. We knock it out of the park. It's a matter of making folks aware of that.
And how do we do that? Is there a better way of, you turn the TV on and Aquinas has this, this great media-based, come to Aquinas, right? Is there an opportunity for us to do that? Because I don't know that parents generally know all the things that we have to offer, especially like you said at 4K. So how do we get to those parents before, you know, they even have kids? Because again, you can only control what we can control, and the things that we can control are the people leaving or the people not coming. So, I mean, decrease in enrollment and, you know, housing and all that stuff is out of our control. So how do we get better at doing that, maybe? And are we doing enough, right?
Yeah, I think we have some public perception to work on. You know, there's, when you talk to realtors, you know, in our area about, you know, what they think are better or worse school districts, they have opinions. And so I think there's some advertising that might need to go on there. Then it's about, you know, how do you reach the audience you want to reach? I think we have a really good Facebook page. It's probably one of the better ones I've seen across the state. The challenge is that's an internal audience. The people that subscribe to a Facebook page are the ones that already go there, that are already connected. And it's hard for that to land on the page of somebody who's not there, you know, so, and see those things. Or somebody who's not in the school district yet.
As a parent that recently moved back into La Crosse, I have to say that I was not aware at all of what La Crosse School District offered, and we were like, well, you know, Onalaska looks really good. We were just kind of going off of what I think Redfin, like the school scores and the reviews and whatnot. I am so happy we are in Crosse School District now that I know its offerings, and glad that we didn't end up in Pullman or Onalaska. But I mean, that I think is a real problem. I even grew up here, and I was like, I don't know, you know. So I don't know how we fix that, but like as a parent that has recently moved into the district, that's a problem.
You know, there's an old marketing adage that people have to hear or see things 7 times before they act on it. And, you know, I think part of it, going back to the Aquinas, they're putting it out in all sorts of media forms, social media, news, all kinds of media. And so when people are making decisions, they've already heard that message 7 times. They haven't heard our message 7 times.
They also have like little yard signs everywhere too.
Yeah, and I, it's a different culture and it's a lot of different things, but I think, you know, what I hear from people all the time is staff and parents is, and when people learn about School District La Crosse, what makes them the most excited are all the choices. And we offer more choices than anybody around, and we don't tell anybody about that. And I think that's an opportunity that we can work on doing, figuring out a better way of getting that message out there. And again, people have to hear things 7 times before they act on it. So just because you see one really cool flyer, then you saw one really cool flyer, but you gotta see or hear something 6 more times before you're gonna act on it. And I think that moves the needle with realtors, it moves the needle with lots of parties.
I think part of the problem though is that, I mean, that all just costs money, right?
We have a
that's
$40,000
one of our
budget
challenges.
for
Yeah.
advertising, which gives us essentially one TV run with 4K
Right.
in the spring and some of the other basic print stuff we do.
Well, then like how much does each student bring in? Like, maybe we need to look at our budget.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at is like I hear everything everyone's saying and I agree, like we need to be getting the message out there more and it, you know, Aquinas as a system has a really strong tradition and community just built around it. So there's so to do that for the public schools, there's an economy of scale there too that we're working with. Like it's a much harder thing to get that level of investment where we could maybe redirect some of those resources more to communication. Like what kind of advertisement would be targeted at a family like Molly's who is considering moving back to the area, and when and how do they interact with that? Like we don't know where you're at in Washington, right? When you're thinking about jobs and whether to make the move. Presumably, yeah, people are looking at all the school report cards and they're looking at Redfin and all the different ways to get ratings that are part of the larger family considerations. But like, where does an advertisement intervene in that in a way that is going to be meaningful? Like, I'm not an advertiser, but that seems like a pretty tough road to hoe.
How does Onalaska do it? I mean, they're honestly kicking our butt in open enrollment, and we offer a heck of a lot more than Alaska does, so the perception is, one, people are leaving the city, and we keep on losing, our neighborhood resources, so they are looking to leave the city, so, and I am a real estate agent, so I see it all the time, and people are looking elsewhere, but we have the best school system definitely around. I think Tim brings a great avenue. Obviously you need money for it, but there's different ways we can even do it, Sharon, you can do a blitz, not just like things we offer and have it shared. Maybe it goes viral. There's a way to advertise that doesn't cost so much, but I think we gotta tout our own school system a lot better than we do, because people just think of us La Crosse School District. I think of it 1983. Well, hello, there wasn't a lot there. We had building trades from Mr. Curtis, rocked it. That was unheard of back then, where you learned how to do electricity, and you learned a lot of that. And but then it kind of went away. Building trades left, and then it's coming back now. But there's a lot to offer, and we need to find some solution, because we're dying a slow death is the bottom line, and we cannot continue down that road. I mean, we'll never completely go, because our city's always gonna have around 50,000, but it's gonna be mostly rentals most day. I'm willing to bet, especially on the north side, because nobody's gonna move there. So we need to look at other alternatives.
I think one of the more inexpensive things we could do is, one of the things we did when we were looking for houses is we looked at the reviews for the schools. And those are right on Redfin and Zillow too. So if we could ask people who have had positive experiences with the school district to leave a review on whatever that is, that would probably be really helpful.
Absolutely.
And that's free.
Yeah,
So,
good point.
and I learned this from executive coaching, then you go 5 stars matters. And then they'll do 5 stars instead of 4.
5 stars,
I'm-
not 4, otherwise you're a hater.
Well, I would say the best people to advertise are parent to parent, and that comes from teachers. Teachers in the classroom, they like this teacher, they like that school, and therefore that's your best advertisements. I mean, if you get one teacher or whatever saying some negative things about the community, about their school or whatever, that spreads pretty fast. I think the affluency of Onalaska is something that draws people to Onalaska. They hear about some maybe poverty area, and I don't want my kid involved in that. I would also say that activities has a lot to do with it, and whether they're successful or not, whether it's a music program or whatever. Kids want, they see the band go down the street during the parade or whatever, or they hear this show choir and they hear about that. They want their kid to be part of that, whether it's the basketball team or the football team or whatever. I mean, Aquinas drives that to the hilt as far as their recruitment of good athletes. If they hear a good athlete, I mean, I don't care. Arcadia, Wisconsin kids are coming down to Aquinas to play a sport that they're embedded with. And they're recruited. And if they can't afford the tuition, somebody pays it. So they have that sense of cheap.
Now we do, yeah.
Vouchers.
What?
Vouchers, we pay.
Well,
I know,
Not
but
all
at the
of
same
it.
time, not all of it.
Somebody does.
There are people that can't afford it even with a voucher, and therefore, I know people that are paying for Aquinas tuition for certain kids. A guy came up to me just the other day and said, yeah, I felt sorry for the kid and the parents, so I came up with the money to pay the tuition.
That's wild.
So I've thought a lot about this topic. So this is a as
You're
I
the one
look
who
at
called for the workshop, so thank you.
as they look at the ins and outs every year, to me it's revenue, right? Like, it's kids, but for me it's also revenue. So to some of the earlier points we made about how do we fund ourselves, how do we look at our budgets, that kind of stick with me. I got a lot of topics that I go through this. So PR is our first thing. Like, this is a branding campaign, right? So that's what we are doing. We are branding. I think to me, we are our own worst enemy because of our choice and because we are split, right? And that split at the high school level is great for lots of different reasons, but it also hurts us, right? Because we don't spend our time, the strength of Onalaska, the strength of Holman is they are Onalaska, they are Holman. They wear the same colors, the community wears it, right? It creates its own brand, it creates its own PR, because it's tied to the community. We are lacrosse. We lose some of that branding power because it's central and local, right? So I think we should seriously think about how we approach. This is not a let's talk about consolidation. This is talk about like consolidate our message as one district. We are one lacrosse. We should be working and talking to the community as one district, as one community, and figuring out ways to highlight all of those strengths as a district and the accessibility across our district and the choices that we have because of that power. We miss some of that because we don't have one, call it high school, and one identity. We have two identities, which is great, but then how do we look at some of those identities in areas where maybe we listened to a lot of really great stories at the start of like when I first came on about show choir consolidating and the experiences students had and how much more powerful we were as a unit, more competitive as we were as a unit. We should be looking at opportunities across the district at clubs, music, drama, certain sports. Like if you look at us and say, are we splitting our funding across two programs? Are we hurting ourselves in the way that we compete? I watch my kids in soccer and I go, okay, Central's got we were 5th and 6th this year in boys soccer, right? If you put us together, we'd probably be 3rd in the district because we could have a pretty good starting 11 with some depth. I think a lot of our sports programs, a lot of our band, you watch our bands in the Oktoberfest parade and you see them both and you're like, Onalaska looks way bigger, right? So the perception that we present to the community, it's being shown, and we're not trying to, right? We're just trying to represent our schools. Our kids do a great job, our teachers do a great job, but it's that perception that it continues to be reinforced by the way that we approach the market. So I want us to kind of think about that, because I've done a lot of research on some of our performance, at least in sports. We average usually 5th and 6th in the conference in WIA, if you take a 5-year average. We've got some peaks, and we've got a couple sports where we do pretty well. I think boys basketball at Central does pretty well consistently. But if you look at most sports, football included, we do not compete super well most years. And part of it is because our resources are split. Our players are split. There's concerns about accessibility when some of that comes into play. But to Jim's point, some people leave a district, whether it's to private schools or out of district for something they're passionate about. That could be singing, music, sports, a club, doesn't matter. It could be part of one of the reasons why they leave.
When you go back through the history of both schools, a successful program in whether it's the music program, the art program, the athletic program, it goes back to the coach.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable of the magnetism of that coach. It's just unbelievable.
Good coaches are like good teachers, right? Like they're very successful for a reason. So I think we have to think differently as a district, as a board, but also as a community. I know when our report cards came out this last week, I saw some negative comments by community members on where we were, and it's like, don't you understand where we are and the things that we have in place and all the journey our students make from where they start, especially in some of our at-risk communities, to where they end through high school.
North side right now, they've done a report card. That's amazing.
Yep.
Actually, what they've accomplished. They've really
Great growth,
yeah,
right?
They've got great growth.
Year over year, and then you see them when they get to Logan High, and we're exceeding, right? So you see where we take them from an elementary level to where we take them throughout their time, and that's a testament to our teachers and staff and what they do. I think that's a different way to tell that story versus, Onalaska exceeds everywhere. That's great. But I think ultimately some of these conversations and how we approach not only just our branding, our image, how we structure our activities and how we structure our support goes into a lot of our facilities conversations. Do we need one really nice music, performing arts center? Do we need one really nice gym? for our basketball and volleyball. And it allows us to make different decisions in some of our areas of investment because we have a more cohesive plan of how we think we should be now and also 5 years from now and 10 years from now, right? I think that's the strategy we have to kind of implement. But I think right now it goes back to grassroots, right? A bunch of yard signs that say one lacrosse, we support lacrosse, to your point. Like I see those Aquinas ones that say welcome to Aquinas, right? Like those are easy, low cost things that can be funded by boosters, by the district, by parents. They can be fundraising mechanisms for us. So there's ways that we could spin that, but I think it goes back to what do we want the message to be? Who do we want to be as a district, and how do we get our message out to the community? Because it's hard.
And I would add that, I mean, just bring the city in as much as we can, so there's a joint effort between the city and La Crosse School District. Those forces have to come together. They can't individually go off.
Agreed. I
If
think
you can do that, you probably solve world peace. Just gonna say.
It's just
I
thinking-
find nothing impossible. So,
I'm not saying it's impossible.
to Scott's point, I mean, it's really hard in this market. We have been looking for a house. We have a nice house, but we would like to look at some changes. It's hard to find a house that's meets your family's needs and still in the district. It's easy to find a house in Holden with 4 bedrooms. I don't want to live there, but it's really easy as a family to find that. So I think the only other thing I'd want to say is I think at least at linkages, we hear a lot from our teachers about how prepared our students are when they come in at K. And I think we should think, what conversation do we want to start with the community, especially given the fact that some of our buildings are already become vacant in the next couple of years? How do we use those buildings? How do we have public-private relationships? How do we find child care and early child education for all of our students? How do we get them prepared for K so they're ready to come in? I think that will long-term be a good investment from the way our kids learn, and also on our teachers and staff and like how their day goes. I can only imagine managing some kids in some of those classrooms. But again, I think that takes a big community conversation. But if we think that that is something we want to invest in as a community, we should start having that conversation now. If we feel like it will make an impact. I'm not saying that's something we need to fully invest in, but there's probably people we can definitely line up with in the community. So, again, I've got lots of thoughts on this, but I think that those are kind of to look at how we can start moving the needle. I think it really comes down to agreeing on a voice and agreeing upon areas where we think we can find the ability to be better as one, and how that public perceives us, and how the experience our students and our families have when they are in some of those situations.
You are worthy of standing ovation there, my man.
Well said.
Jim?
You know, like you talked about the one high school or whatever, and I don't know that whether that's feasible in this city, but one thing I do think that would work, and Aquinas says you can talk about vouchers or whatever. One of the things that made a difference in terms of that school and their activities department was they became a 6 through 12 institution where kids were brought in 6th grade and said, this is the Aquinas way, this is the Aquinas way. 7th graders go to 8th grade classes. Coaches are connected with kids in 7th and 8th grade, and that kid stays on track. Math classes, they have 8th and 9th graders in Algebra 1, Algebra 2 geometry because the classes are all right there. The teacher knows who the students are. And so that makes a difference if they're all in the same building. And you could say, well, we'll combine the 2 schools and we'll have a larger force. Well, this is a way of connecting because right now our middle schools, I don't see have, maybe I could be wrong here, but they are not accelerating in terms of activities of any sort. I don't know exactly where that's all at, but like I said, when I was at Longfellow, and you have 3 kids watching a video of a class that is being taught in geometry here, and they were having a hard time connecting, it just didn't make sense to me to watch that. And then there were kids taking algebra, but they're being taught with non-mathematical people that have a general middle school background, but not a math background. It makes a difference.
I think sooner or later, to your point, especially in maybe a 10-year plan or whatever we have, we're gonna have to take a look at, you know, maybe a middle school with the high school, especially probably at Logan, you know, because we're declining and we continue to decline. But he brings up, I think, in the meantime, as our sports teams and other things get low, like we have been doing, I think we're gonna have to join forces. It's just the way it was. I mean, it used to be that way even with swimming. You know, they had the Logan Central and they had,
West Salem,
yeah.
still co-ops.
Yeah, yeah, they had a lot of that. So, we're gonna have to get creative coming up, but I think we need to start making the sales pitch sooner rather than later, because we gotta stop the bleeding right now. You know, we're putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm, and it's obviously not working. But I think there's ways to, and to, not to bring it, you know, but we talked about the best advertising is word of mouth by the parents and stuff. I'm gonna be honest with you, there's a lot of parents that have no idea all that lacrosse offers. And I think they'd be shocked if they, so I think if we tout all the benefits of our school district, it would even wake them up. Because it, honestly, it woke me up, because I had no clue. It's been a long time since I've had children, you know, in the school district, and I think it's something to really be proud of.
Just want to clarify, I never said one school, so.
No,
Just want to make sure the public knows, I never said one school.
I second that. so
Okay.
I didn't hear you say that.
But
Yeah.
Jim, your point is, that's where I think my head goes is like, do we continue to consolidate like our facilities on north and south side footprints, right? To be able to upgrade our middle schools, our high schools, as well as our elementaries, but that frees up a lot of real estate for athletic facilities, for trade education, for fine art facilities. But I think of it this way, so if we take our bands, right, you still want the band to play at the halftime of the football game, it's not a change, right? But when we march in a parade, where we should march as lacrosse.
Why can't
Right.
both of them march together, right?
They should be in one uniform, they should march together, it should say lacrosse, and that's who we march as. And take a dance team, right? Dance team should be one dance team, right? That's a numbers issue that we have every year.
And I think we noticed this year that Logan's band was puny.
Yep.
I mean, very small, which really shocked me, because usually it's pretty good size. And I'm like, you know, and we talk sports-wise too, it goes in this, because you remember a few years ago, Aquinas didn't have enough to field a football team.
Yep.
So, you know, and now they're back to full strength. So we are gonna have, but joining the forces on some of those is gonna make us, well, one, to your point, we'll be a lot more competitive, and ultimately it'll be good for the kids too, because it builds camaraderie.
It's a lot more fun, right? Like I watched Logan get 8-goal mercy rule like in 10 of their games last year, right? It's not a lot of fun to
Yeah.
get smoked every game. It's a lot more fun when at least you're competitive in the games you're playing. Again, it's not about winning; it's about experience. It's about working as a team. That's what high school sports are, right? But to Jim's point, right? It's about activities. It's about giving kids opportunities. It's about finding something they're passionate about, both in middle school all the way through high school.
I mean, I remember during the high school referendum conversations, there was a lot of talk about like what happens when there's only one varsity team, there's only one first chair violin, right? But I think what was lost in that, and if I remember correctly, I said something to this effect after I joined the board, was that there's a reason that the most competitive programs, the strongest programs that produce people who carry on a lifelong interest in music and theater and sport are big programs, right? That they can develop talent, that they have resources to have more than just the one coach who's holding it all together, but a coaching staff, a culture, right? A teaching culture in music, and that the whole thing can go on past that person's retirement. We saw some, you think of Mike Esser in the show choir years, when Central Show Choir was the bee's knees, and it was not long after I graduated that, of course, the population decline really had a big part of doing that. But when you lose that singular figure, because it's so focused around a person, so I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and I think that some kind of more, not consolidated, I don't wanna use the word consolidation, but some kind of more focused, centralized, approach to those activities that people really rally around is probably a good idea.
And I can remember before Esser was Bud Aronson, and
Yeah.
he was a standout.
So it wasn't just you leaving.
No, yeah, the second percussionist on the Grand Central Station, no, definitely not.
Did we give you some thoughts?
Absolutely. We've got a small group of school district staff that's going to get together to talk about public perception, and many of the things that you brought up will be part of our discussion, and then I hope to bring it back here as a workshop to talk about next steps from the board's perspective and refine the initial things that we're putting together.
Great.
This was a good workshop. I think it was needed, so good
Yep.
call.
Yeah, thank you.
It's interesting to get some context to some of these numbers.
Thank you all.
No consolidation.
No, clear. I'm not saying we should take a football team